Hello, Great Southern Ancient Miniature Man here, and I've got a little video on putting together a late Roman Legionnaire. So I've had a few nice comments from people about some of the ones I've already reviewed. So I thought I'd just show you my technique, which is actually pretty simple to put these guys together. And because I quite like the Victrix and also the Wargames Atlantic, I'm going to make a guy who's a bit of a hybrid of both. So I've got the bits I'm going to use here, Victrix, and then these bits are from Wargames Atlantic. So he's going to have one of these nice crests on his helmet, and I like the shield from Wargames Atlantic. While it's a bit big, it's got those cool plumbata on the back, so I'm going to put that on for this guy. So I'm going to try to make this reasonably brief and kind of edit some of the more dull bits, shall we say, or repetitive bits, so you don't have to watch every single second of the whole production. But one thing I did mention in my review of the Victrix is they do always have this seam line sort of down the edges of their legs, both inside and outside, that needs a bit of cleaning off, and usually on their arms as well. So that'll be step one. It's pretty easy, just a matter of running a very blunt hobby knife scalpel blade over the edge and tidying it up. Sometimes I get a little bit of sandpaper or emery board in there. Often I notice once I've sort of base coated them, you see some of the lines a bit more clearly, and you just have to go back and do a little bit extra. It's not a big deal. So I'll just clean up some of these other bits. So I might just do that off camera, and I will come back, show you the next stage. Okay, I've done most of that. One thing I did find was the neck of the Victrix guy is just a bit too prominent for the head of their Wargames Atlantic, so I did need a good filing down of his neck just to make them fit nicely and look more realistic. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. This crest has got a little attachment from the sprue in the middle, so if you've got one of these rounded files, they're very handy for that sort of thing, just to get that out of the road. So I've got all the components cleaned up now. The only other thing I would just do is work out where I'm going to put this massive Conan the Barbarian sword. So if I'm going to put it on there, yeah, I think I will. What I'd do, just to make it fit a bit more snugly, usually is use this round file again, just to make a bit of a groove in the figure so it will fit in without being poking out kind of unnaturally. And also this gives you a much better adherence with the glue, and so you're less likely to break it off when you knock the guy over. So, see how that looks. Yeah, it's going to fit in quite snugly there, I think. That'll be a bit better. Alright, I'll just tighten them up a tiny bit more and then we'll glue them together. Alright, trying to put him together. So this is super cheap super glue. Cheapest one money can buy, seems to work fine. His head, I think pretty straight on with the head will be good for this guy. Back a tiny bit. Yeah, looks pretty good. Under the magnifying light. Yep, happy with that. Okay, let's stick the arms on. There's a very good connection with these arms. When they're on, they look seamless. You can hardly see where the connection is. For the Victrix ones, the Wargames Atlantic, not quite so much. Got a sort of a bit of a funny shoulder, a few of them, a little bit flat, down sloping even. Okay, that one, and he's going to be holding this very large shield, so I might put his arm down so the shield doesn't totally obscure his face once it's attached. I'll leave that off for now, and we'll attach that at this last step. Stick your finger to the model. Classic. Here up. Oh, he's done it. seems to be much more sticky to skin than it is to plastic for some reason. Okay, this is pretty boring viewing. I'm turning this off and I'll stick it together. Of course, you probably noticed I didn't put the cloak on, and I just tried to pull his head off, but it's so well stuck on now that it's not going to go. So we're going to make this guy without a cloak. Next one, I have a cloak. A little crest on his head. So it's a bit tricky to get these on and aligned, but looks okay from that angle, this angle. Sorry, I'm just going to look under the bright magnifying light. Come across a millimetre. Yep, pretty happy with that crest. And I think I'll leave the sword off actually for now, because that's going to be quite hard to paint in situ. We'll do it separately and put it on later. And there's going to be the big shield, yeah, so that'll be nicely out of the way. So the other thing I do is just attach them to the base, and I like to just use these simple, they're zinc plated washers, 3/8 of an inch. So it just gives a bit more weight, stability, solidity. Got this Loctite extreme glue, quite good for this. It's a bit more gelatinous. It's not a super glue, it doesn't stick in seconds, but it does. Probably takes about 5 minutes to be pretty stable, and it does seem to give, it's very easy to put on, give a solid fit once it's dried. I just covered up the little hole in the washer with tape so that it's, when you put it on basing stuff later, it doesn't fall through the hole. So there he is, he's looking decent. I'll let him dry and then I'll put some basing stuff on as the next stage. Right, it's about 5 minutes later and he's stuck quite nicely now to the base. I did really want a cloak, so I've got this other Victrix one of those clip-on ones rather than right around the neck, so that'll work. So I'll use that, that's for another set. And I thought another nice thing might be to have this banner, Cairo banner from the Wargames Atlantic set, just in the ground behind him. It could look pretty cool. So I'll add that as well. Next step really is the basing. So if I'm putting big rocks on, I usually glue them in place first, but I think we'll just use fairly small pebbly sort of stuff here. So I'm going to put my basing putty paste on, and then we'll just sprinkle a bit of sand and grit and stuff over that. That'll work the best. So nothing very special about this method, just trying to hide that integrated base that he comes on. Put a little bit across the middle so it all looks consistent. Keep as much of it off his body as you can. It's fairly easy to get it off with an old paintbrush with some water on it if needed. But prevention's better than cure, as we say. Keep it away from there. Riveting stuff, eh? I will put the usual chapter timestamp things on so you can skip around between sections if you need. You might have noticed he's a bit wobbly there, he's not totally stuck to the base yet, but this will help stick him down. Alright, so that is all the paste I need really. Then I'm going to sprinkle a little mixture of sand and grit over that, so while it's drying it can all start sticking in as well. Got a few different little tubs of stuff here, but this one a mixture of some local beach sand and some sort of grit I got from the pet shop fish tanks. Too many big stones on there, so I'll just put a few little ones, and then try to get more sand than stones in the next go round. Alright. So knock off the really loose stuff and the stones that are protruding too much, push them back into sensible positions. And that's it. So that does take a while to dry. I'll probably give that 3 or 4 hours now. And then I'll base coat the whole thing from there. Right, so a few hours later, it should have solidified enough so I can put a bit of a black base coat down. So this is just a very cheap acrylic paint from the local craft store. A big tube, a bit left, that'll do it. So I just dilute that a bit and then use that. I'll do the figure first and then the base second. I used to do it the other way around, but I've realised after a while that you get little bits of sand and grit sort of stuck in your brush, and when you did the figure they would end up adhering to it and giving you some pretty wacky looking features later on, which weren't that obvious until you fully painted them. So get around that, do the guy first. Quite a dilute, just slightly more than a wash really with the black to get it fully covered, because later on we're going to give it a dry brush with white to be the main colour. So this is really just to hang out in all the nooks and crannies and recesses to give some shading. And I'll do a bit of speed painting, probably most of it won't be, but if you have that initial nice contrast, it just makes the job so much easier for the speed paint, and you get I think much more interesting effects and better colour differentiation. So I've got all the figure there, and then I'll just get this thicker version now and go right over the base. And the idea with that is not just painting it black, it's helping to stick down all that grit and stuff as well with a thick globby acrylic paint. So it's almost dabbing it rather than painting it on. So get as much of that stuff stuck down as we can. If there's bits that are really close to the feet, then I sometimes just drag them away, knock them off. So it makes it hard to paint the feet if they're little rocks right up against them. Make sure you get the rim of the washer there as well. It's nice to have that as black. I'll probably need to go back later and do another thin layer of black around the rim. Pretty much got him all. He's been touching his head now, so I'll have to just go back and do that. And just wash out the brush to try to get as much grip off it as can. A bit more on the crest. Probably a bit too dilute on the rest of the figure. It's come running off a bit, I see, so a little bit more, breaking my rule of doing. Try not to go back and do the figure after you've already done the base. I probably could change the brush, that'd be a smart thing. Anyway, almost there now. So that's it, we'll give that a few hours again to dry, and then the white dry brush over that. Alright, dry brush time. So I think it's had time enough for the black to dry. There's a little bit maybe on the base, it's still slightly moist, so I'll just have to try to avoid that. This is a slightly more expensive actually antique white, a little bit of a creamy white. Sort of dry, a slightly better quality one. I do think it gives a better effect than the real cheap acrylic for the dry brush, and it's got a sort of nice creamy texture to it, so it goes on quite well as a dry brush. So this is a soft makeup brush. I find they're really good for this. So I don't want much on there at all to start with. And we'll just start going over and see how much it puts on. You can always put on more if you're not happy with it. And I wanted actually to coat the vast majority of this figure now in a fairly good white, so I'm going to get a bit more. It's not putting enough on yet. Yeah, I really only want the most deep recesses to remain black, and just good coating of white over it. should have left that arm off probably, because it's quite hard to get in and under the spear there. We can just get enough in, I think. Been smart to leave that off, but anyway. And around there. Alright, and then I just do the same on the base, over all the rocks, pebbles, sand. You generally always get on the black rim, which is why you've got to go back later and just touch up that black rim before you finish, but that can be on the final steps. And there. Alright. Do it for that. Got some shields that I've just got batched here. So I painted them black and then I basically spray painted them red, and I've done a little dry brush of red over the top as well, and I'll put some, probably put a shield decal or two on them just to make them a bit more colourful and interesting. Alright, painting time. So all that hard work we did with the preparation should make this painting pretty quick and easy now. So I'm going to use some contrast paints, and then in other places I'll use normal paints, just fairly diluted, so that they give almost like a wash over the colour, so you retain that that darkness and the lightness that we've already put on. I'm going to mix a bit of these two speed paints, the grey and the blue, to make a sort of dirty, darkish, drabbish blue for the trousers. That's the I'm going for. Mix them up a bit. Hopefully that's enough. Yeah, it should be fairly quick and easy to get this on. Avoid putting on the shoes. It's a bit brighter than I was hoping for. Anyway, I can just put another layer of some use the army paint, a quick shade over it to dull it down later on. And a bit of that. There we go, you get the idea. I'll come back in a minute, do another layer. Now I'm going to do the cape. So, I hate wasting stuff, so I'm mixing a bit of red with the blue, and I'll use that on the underside because I want that darker anyway. This is really easy now with the black and white undercoat. Makes it very quick and easy to apply that. I might just do the front at the same time. So just putting that all over it. You can see the benefits of the early work. Immediately it's looking pretty good with a very simple application of red. I haven't missed any there. Just rest that over here, and then last bit is I'm going to do the wooden base of the standard there. So this is my favourite speed paint. Brilliant, hardened leather. Fantastic for any kind of wood. Just about anything brown wood or leather or brown hair, brown skin or horses. They all seem to work nicely with this. Take that out of there. So I've already used that red contrast on the cloth of the banner, and quick and easy straight over. Should have a slightly thinner brush for this, fine bits. Yeah, I think it will actually. That'll do for that. Yeah, I'll do that off camera. I've got a bit of extra of that leather colour. I'm just going to do some of these leather features of the guy. So this nice pouch underneath here, and onto his leather belt and straps as well. Shocking weather here today. Cold and wet. Perfect day for painting. Alright, I'm going to need better magnification, so I'll do that off camera. We'll do the main tunic bit now. I think we'll use this very nice colour from Vallejo, that is Deck Tanned. One of my favourite off-whites, creamy whites, and I'll dilute it down quite a bit so that it's almost a wash. The only problem with those speed paints I find is that if you want to go back and paint a different colour over them, like you want to do, say, red lines around the sleeves, then it kind of just reactivates the initial colour, merges, and then becomes a dirty pink. So it's no use for that. So if you want to go over it, don't use a contrast paint. I just use a diluted regular like this one. So I want it quite dilute, and I don't want to lose all the shading that we've done before. Might even be still a bit too concentrated here. Just go very dilute there. That's looking a bit better around there. Yeah, I shall do that and be back in a minute. So it's dried now, and it did obscure some of the shading a bit. So I'm just going to use a little coat of this one, Apothecary White from Citadel. Nice contrasty one, and that hopefully will bring back a bit of that darkness in the recesses. Do that, and then I'll show you the next bit. Alright, now we're going to put a little bit of grey on the helmet as the base coat for that, and then silver over that. And again, I'm going to try to get it very diluted, so it's just a very light wash over there. It's going to be making them too thick at the moment. Skewering some of that contrast from earlier. Let's just get a real light grey wash on there. Almost. Oh yeah, there we go. That's about the right strength, I'd say. Yeah, put a bit on the spear head as well. All right. On here, I'm going to put a dash of this red speed paint on for his feathers. My second favourite speed paint, the red one. That's brilliant. Blood Red, Army Painter. See that with the black and white already underneath it, it just gives you an instant excellent look. Happy with that. Okay, a little bit of drying, and next stage. I'm going to put a little bit of this micro sol on the transfers there. Just softens them and helps them conform, particularly good for non-smooth or non-flat surfaces like these convex shields here, and also the banner. Just helps to soften up the transfer so it'll hopefully mould nicely to the shape of the surface it's on. Oops, just reactivating a bit of that contrast paint. Okay, that'll do for them. Then I'm going to put a little bit of silver now on for the helmet of a Legionnaire. So he's got the grey undercoat, and this is really just a dry brush. Very subtle is the aim here. A little bit of shine. I'm going to use a brighter silver as well over the top of this, so kind of 3 layers. And we'll probably put on a little bit of blue as a shade. I only paint a shade, so it's probably enough actually for his helmet. And then same with the spear tip. I'm going to do the stripes on the spear, so just to help guide me, I'm marking 0.5 centimetre increments along here. Just with a pencil. I'll put a bit of paint on them so we get the sizes right. So, yep, that'll do. So we'll get to work on doing this stripy spear. I'm going to go yellow and red. So I'll start with yellow. So it's red there to there. There's the yellow bit. I just have to measure that out again to be sure I get it right. And now I'm just going to put a little bit of this contrast yellow on top of the other yellow, just to give a bit more subtle colour variation. Right, a bit of red again. Do the rest of the spear and a little bit detailing around on his tunic. So let's get this on. Trying to leave a tiny line of white between the red and the yellow to help distinguish them. The rest of it I'm going to need good magnification, so I'm going to do that off camera. Alright, making progress now. Let's get onto the skin. This is the Dwarven Flesh Skin by Masters Series Paints Reaper. They make my favourite kind of skin. I don't have a lot of skin to do on this guy, it's just his hands and his face, so that makes it easy. I did the red lines you might notice around his sleeves and bottom of his tunic there. Okay, we'll need a bit of magnification to get this accurate, so I'll do that off camera. Next step's the wash for the skin. That'll be the Master Series Paint Reaper one. Again, my favourite skin wash. Pretty quick process this one. Such little skin to deal with. There. Get it on the face. Get it on the neck. And done. Next step's the lower lip. I'm just going to paint a little bit of pink on there, and then I'm going to do the eyes, which are pretty delicate and need a lot of magnification, so I'll just do that off camera. Alright, I've gone ahead and stuck on the sword and the shield there, so we're super close. I'm just going to finish off the basing and then we're done. Put the super glue on there. Put one of these basic green tufts on. Try not to put it right on his shoe. And then I'll just put a little bit of extra grass sprinkled around, and that'll be that. Bit of just clear glue for the grass. Just find a little bit of grass is usually the best, you know. Totally cover up all the nice gravel and rocks that you've put on. Just a dash here and there for extra visual interest. And where's my spoon? Oh, there it is. Just sprinkle a bit around. Knock it off. And job done. Put him on the turntable, give you some close-up photos.